Welcome to Shadow Psychology Coded, where we venture beyond the sanitized, safe territories of mainstream thought to explore the dangerous and transformative frontiers of the human mind. Today, we initiate a profound and systematic dismantling of the single greatest obstacle standing between you and the activation of a superhuman level of intelligence, the prison of conventional thinking. This is not an exaggeration, it is a precise diagnosis of the modern mental condition. From the moment you are born, you are immersed in a sea of prepackaged ideas, inherited values, and socially engineered thought patterns. The education system does not teach you how to think. It teaches you what to think, conditioning you to become a reliable, predictable cog in the societal machine. The media does not inform you. It programs you with a curated reality designed to elicit specific emotional responses and reinforce consensus narratives. Your social circles enforce conformity through subtle and overt rewards for agreement and punishments for deviation. This entire apparatus is designed for one primary purpose: to produce manageable individuals, not sovereign intellects. The price of this social compliance is your innate cognitive potential. You have been taught to color inside the lines, to seek the right answer, to value harmony over truth, and to fear the social ostracism that comes with genuine intellectual independence. The first and most critical step in awakening a level of intelligence far beyond the ordinary is to perform a merciless execution of this conventional mind. You must declare war on the automatic, unexamined thoughts that populate your consciousness. You must become a radical skeptic of everything you have been taught to believe, especially the beliefs you hold most dear. This is the Nietzschean path to intellectual freedom, and it begins with what I term the practice of systematic intellectual negation. Systematic intellectual negation is not nihilism. It is not the belief in nothing. It is the disciplined methodology of clearing the psychological ground of the weeds of inherited dogma to make space for the cultivation of ideas that are truly your own, ideas that are forged in the fire of your own experience and critical scrutiny. The conventional mind is a crowded attic filled with the junk of other people's thoughts. You cannot build a palace in a cluttered attic. Your first task is to grab a mental sledgehammer and begin demolition. This process is uncomfortable, disorienting, and often frightening. It requires you to question the very foundations of your identity, which is largely constructed from these external implants. What are your political beliefs? Where did they truly come from? Are they the product of your own rigorous analysis of history and human nature? Or are they emotional attachments formed by your tribal affiliations and the media you consume? What are your beliefs about money, success, relationships, and morality? Are they authentically yours, or are they phantom opinions you've absorbed from your parents, your peers, and the culture at large? You must subject every single one of these foundational beliefs to a ruthless interrogation. Ask of each one, does this belief empower me? Does it expand my understanding of reality? Does it come from a place of strength and life affirmation, or from a place of fear, resentment, and weakness? This is the essence of applying Nietzsche's revaluation of all values to the interior of your own mind. You are not seeking to arrive at a new set of correct beliefs. You're seeking to become the source and the judge of your own beliefs. The goal is not to replace one dogma with another, but to develop the cognitive machinery to generate your own living, breathing, and evolving philosophy. This practice of negation directly targets what Nietzsche identified as the herd instinct in knowledge. The herd instinct is the unconscious, powerful drive to align your thinking with the group, to seek the comfort of consensus, to feel the warm glow of belonging that comes from sharing the same opinions as your tribe. This instinct is the death of genius. True intelligence, the kind that sees connections others miss, that solves problems others deem impossible, that creates art and philosophy and technology that redefine reality, is inherently anti-herd. It operates on a different frequency. It is often dissonant, disruptive, and initially perceived as dangerous or insane. To awaken this intelligence, you must systematically weaken the herd instinct within yourself. You must learn to derive pleasure not from agreement, but from the solitary thrill of discovering a unique perspective. You must rewire your brain to interpret the feeling of cognitive dissonance, the discomfort of holding two conflicting ideas, not as a threat to be avoided, but as the fertile ground where all genuine learning and innovation occurs. When you feel that internal resistance to a new idea, that is the signal that you are on the right track. That is the sound of your conventional mind struggling to maintain its dominance. You must learn to lean into that discomfort, to savor it, to see it as the growing pain of your expanding intellect. The practical application of this first principle is a daily cognitive hygiene routine. It begins with what I call the belief audit. Set aside time each day, even if it is only 15 minutes, for a session of deliberate, targeted skepticism. Take one of your core beliefs, for example. Hard work is always rewarded. Now, actively and aggressively argue against it. Seek out evidence that contradicts it. Find historical examples, personal experiences, and logical arguments that prove that hard work is often ignored, exploited, or even punished. The point of this exercise is not to convince yourself that hard work is worthless. The point is to break the automatic, unthinking acceptance of the belief. You are strengthening your mental muscle for critical analysis. You are learning to hold ideas lightly, to see them as tools or hypotheses rather than as parts of your identity. Another powerful practice is deliberate heterodoxy. Once a week, choose a topic that is sacred to your social or professional group. A political issue, a cultural trend, a business strategy, and deliberately research and articulate the strongest possible case for the opposing viewpoint. Do this not as a debater trying to win, but as a genuine inquirer trying to understand. Force your brain to build the neural pathways required to see the world through a completely different lens. This is incredibly demanding cognitive work, but it is the kind of work that forges a flexible, agile, and powerful mind, capable of navigating complexity rather than retreating into simplistic dogma. This process of intellectual negation and deconditioning is the essential prerequisite. You cannot build a skyscraper on a foundation of sand. You cannot awaken a superhuman intelligence within a mind that is clogged with the second-hand thoughts of the masses. The death of conventional thinking is the violent, necessary, and liberating first birth pang of a new kind of mind, a mind that is truly your own, a mind capable of perceiving realities that are invisible to the herd, a mind that can begin to wield what Nietzsche called the will to power in the realm of thought itself. This is not the end of the journey. It is the brutal and necessary beginning. It is the clearing of the throat before the opera of your own genius can begin. The silence and the space you create by tearing down the old structures is what will allow the new, more potent and original thoughts to emerge. This is the first and most critical step in unlocking the forbidden technique to a level of intelligence that operates on a plane far beyond the ordinary genius, which is itself often just a highly proficient prisoner of a slightly more sophisticated convention. The demolition of conventional thinking creates a void, a fertile silence where the echoes of the herd have been silenced. This void is not an endpoint. It is the sacred space where a new relationship with knowledge can be born. The common man, even the conventionally educated one, approaches knowledge as a collector. He gathers facts, data, degrees, and certifications, amassing them like currency to signal his value and secure his position within the system. His learning is horizontal, an accumulation of approved information within predefined boundaries. This is the will to truth, as Nietzsche diagnosed it, a passive acceptance of established facts, a religious reverence for academic authority, and a deep-seated fear of venturing beyond the mapped territories of sanctioned disciplines. The intellect we are striving to awaken operates on a completely different principle. It is driven not by a will to truth, but by a will to knowledge. This is a crucial distinction. Truth is static, something to be discovered and possessed. Knowledge, in this Nietzschean sense, is dynamic, personal, and power-generating. It is not about collecting answers. It is about cultivating a more potent capacity for questioning. It is not about mastering a curriculum. It is about hacking the very process of understanding to expand the boundaries of what is knowable. This will to knowledge is an active, aggressive, and deeply personal pursuit. It treats information not as dogma to be memorized, but as raw material to be broken down, recombined, and tested in the forge of lived experience. It seeks not comfort in certainty, but power through understanding. This will to knowledge demands a radical shift in your approach to learning. You must transition from being a student to being an explorer, and from being an explorer to being a conqueror of intellectual territories. The first casualty of this transition is the artificial segregation of knowledge into academic disciplines. The university system, for all its virtues, is a relic of an industrial age mindset that prioritizes specialization over synthesis. It produces experts who know everything about a tiny sliver of reality and nothing about how that sliver connects to the whole. The superhuman intellect we are building is fundamentally anti-disciplinary. It recognizes that the most profound insights occur at the intersections, where biology meets psychology, where physics informs philosophy, where art illuminates economics. Your learning must become a conscious process of intellectual cross-pollination. When you study a new concept in strategic thinking, you immediately ask, how does this apply to my personal relationships? How does this mirror a principle in evolutionary biology? How can this be represented through an artistic metaphor? You are not just learning a concept. You are weaving it into a dense, interconnected web of understanding, a personal matrix of knowledge where every node strengthens and illuminates every other node. This creates cognitive density, a quality of mind where thoughts are so richly interconnected that problem-solving becomes a process of seeing patterns and drawing connections that are invisible to the specialized mind. The engine of this cross-pollination is what Nietzsche called dangerous thinking. This is not thinking about dangerous topics. It is thinking that is dangerous to your current beliefs, your social standing, and your comfortable worldview. It is the conscious practice of following a line of inquiry wherever it leads, regardless of how heretical, unsettling, or politically incorrect the conclusions may be. The conventional mind hits a wall when it encounters a taboo subject that is too sensitive, a question that is too impolite, a hypothesis that challenges a sacred cow. It instinctively pulls back, self-censors, and seeks refuge in acceptable opinions. The intellect driven by the will to knowledge sees these taboos as the very gates to uncharted territory. It charges directly at them. It asks the questions that everyone is thinking, but no one is willing to voice. It challenges the fundamental assumptions that underlie entire fields of study. This is an immensely courageous act because it requires you to risk being wrong, being ostracized, and being misunderstood. But this risk is the price of admission to a higher level of understanding. Every major intellectual leap in human history, from Copernicus to Darwin to Nietzsche himself, was made by a thinker who was willing to be dangerous. They prioritized the integrity of their inquiry over the approval of their peers. To activate superhuman intelligence, you must cultivate this same fearless commitment to your own cognitive journey. You must grant yourself permission to be wrong, to be a fool, to explore dead ends, all for the chance of discovering a new path that no one else has seen. The practical methodology for this is active synthesis. Passive consumption of information, reading books, watching lectures, is insufficient. It is the mental equivalent of eating pre-processed food. You must engage in the raw, messy, and creative work of synthesizing knowledge from disparate fields. A powerful exercise is to take two completely unrelated books. For example, a text on military strategy like Sun Tzu's The Art of War and a textbook on cognitive neuroscience and force yourself to write a short essay connecting them. What can warfare teach us about the brain's executive function? What can neural networks teach us about tactical deception? This is not an academic exercise. It is a workout for your brain's connective tissue. Another technique is the first principles teardown. When you encounter a complex theory or a widely accepted practice in your field, you deliberately strip it down to its most fundamental, irreducible components. You ask, what are the bedrock assumptions here? If I started from scratch, knowing what I know now from other fields, would I build it this way? This process often reveals the hidden flaws, outdated premises, and unexamined biases that are baked into conventional wisdom. It allows you to rebuild your understanding from a more solid and innovative foundation. This is how you move from applying knowledge to generating it. The will to knowledge, therefore, transforms you from a librarian who curates the thoughts of others into an architect who designs new structures of understanding. It is the furious, joyful, and relentless process of using all available knowledge as your toolkit, not your temple, and building with it in the direction of greater power, greater clarity, and a more profound comprehension of the terrifying and beautiful complexity of reality. This is the second pillar in the awakening of an intelligence that does not just know more, but knows differently, and in that difference finds its superhuman advantage. The will to knowledge equips you with a formidable and interconnected web of understanding, a personal matrix of power that transcends conventional disciplinary boundaries. Yet, a vast repository of knowledge, no matter how sophisticated, can still become a new kind of prison if it is viewed from a single, fixed vantage point. The most common failure of even brilliant minds is the inability to escape their own perspective. They become trapped in their unique constellation of experiences, biases, and intellectual commitments, mistaking their particular view of the mountain for the mountain itself. The third principle in awakening superhuman intelligence is the masterful practice of perspective shifting. This is the cognitive art of voluntarily and deliberately dismantling your own point of view to experience reality through multiple, often contradictory frames of reference. It is the disciplined cultivation of what Nietzsche called the ability to employ a variety of perspectives and effective interpretations in the service of knowledge. This is not empathy in the sentimental sense. It is intellectual empathy of the most ruthless kind. It is the capacity to step into the worldview of another historical figure, a philosophical opponent, a different culture, even an animal. Not to sympathize, but to understand the internal logic of that perspective so completely that you can temporarily believe it. The goal is to see why the world looks the way it does from there, to grasp the values, the fears, the assumptions that make that perspective not just possible, but inevitable for the one who holds it. This practice is the direct antidote to what we can term cognitive solipsism, the unconscious assumption that your way of seeing the world is the default, the most rational, or the most accurate. The sovereign intellect recognizes that all perception is interpretation. There are no brute facts. There are only facts filtered through a value-laden perspective. Your political beliefs, your aesthetic tastes, your moral judgments, these are not discoveries of objective reality, but expressions of your underlying psychological and physiological state. To believe otherwise is the height of intellectual naivete. Perspective shifting, therefore, is the systematic training to become aware of your own interpretive lens and to experiment with swapping it for others. Imagine your mind as a camera. Most people are born with one lens, a standard 50mm and perhaps, and they spend their entire lives believing that this is how the world truly looks. The practice of perspective shifting is the conscious act of changing lenses, slapping on a wide angle to see the vast interconnected context, a telephoto to zoom in on minute but crucial details, a fisheye to create deliberate distortion that reveals hidden patterns, and even an infrared lens to see the heat signatures of emotional and psychological energies that are invisible to the naked eye. A single event, a business negotiation, a political debate, a personal conflict is not a single event. It is a multitude of simultaneous events, each perceived differently through every lens present. The most powerful form of this practice is self-transcendence in thinking. This involves performing a psychological split and observing yourself from the outside. Nietzsche pointed toward this with his concept of becoming the poet of one's own life. You must learn to view your own beliefs, your own reactions, your own life narrative, as if you were a biographer or a psychologist studying a fascinating subject. When you are in the grip of a strong emotion, rage, jealousy, pride, you activate the observer from the iceberg principle. But you take it a step further. You ask, what would a detached historian, writing a century from now, say about this person's reaction? What underlying weakness or strength does it reveal? What narrative would they construct about this moment in my life? This creates an immense and immediate sense of scale. The petty grievances and momentary triumphs that consume your mental energy are suddenly revealed in their true, fleeting proportion. This is not about diminishing your life, but about elevating your understanding of it. You stop being the actor who is wholly absorbed in his role on the stage and become also the director and the critic in the audience, all simultaneously. This meta-awareness is a hallmark of the highest order of intelligence. It allows you to edit your performance in real time, to question your own motivations, and to escape the narrow prison of the present moment's emotional intensity. The practical application of this is the perspective drill. This is a daily mental workout that can be done anywhere. Take a single issue you have a strong opinion about. It could be a political policy, a management decision at work, or a personal dispute. Now, systematically and convincingly argue for the opposing viewpoint. But do not do this as a straw man exercise. Your goal is to build the strongest, most coherent, and most emotionally compelling case for the other side that you possibly can. You must get inside the head of your intellectual adversary and speak from their soul. Feel their frustrations, champion their values, articulate their fears, then take it further. Adopt an even more alien perspective. How would a medieval monk view this issue? A Silicon Valley transhumanist? A hunter-gatherer from 10,000 BC? An artificial general intelligence? The point is not to abandon your own perspective, but to hold it more lightly, to see it as one option among many valid interpretations. Another powerful technique is chronoscopic thinking. When facing a major decision, project your consciousness forward in time. Visualize yourself 1 year, 5 years, and 20 years from now looking back on this moment. What would your future self advise you to do? What would they see that you are currently missing? This simple shift from the immediate egocentric perspective to a long-term retrospective one instantly clarifies priorities and cuts through trivial anxieties. Perspective shifting, in its ultimate expression, is the cognitive embodiment of the will to power. It is the refusal to be the slave of a single perception. It is the active seeking of multiple interpretations to gain a more complete, more three-dimensional, and therefore more powerful grasp of reality. It is what allows the superhuman intellect to navigate complex systems, predict human behavior, and generate innovative solutions. Not because it is smarter in a linear sense, but because it can see the entire chessboard from every angle at once, while its opponents are still squinting at the pieces from one fixed position. This fluidity of perception is the third critical activation code in the awakening of an intelligence that is not merely large, but truly limitless. The mastery of perspective shifting grants you a fluid, multifaceted understanding of reality, but this understanding remains superficial if it does not penetrate to the depths of your being. Knowledge that dances across the surface of the mind is entertainment. Knowledge that rewires your nervous system is power. The fourth principle in unlocking superhuman intelligence moves beyond the horizontal accumulation of perspectives into the vertical deepening of a single thought. This is the application of one of Nietzsche's most profound and misunderstood concepts, the eternal recurrence as a practical cognitive tool. The philosophical thought experiment asks, what if a demon crept after you into your loneliest loneliness and said, "This life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more"? Would you not throw yourself down and gnash your teeth and curse the demon who spoke thus? Or have you once experienced a tremendous moment when you would have answered him, "You are a god, and never have I heard anything more divine"? We are not using this as a metaphysical proposition about the universe, but as a psychological razor for testing the quality and depth of your thoughts. The question transforms into, what thought is so powerful, so life-affirming, so utterly aligned with your deepest nature that you would willingly think it in all its consequences over and over again for eternity? Most of the thoughts that occupy your mind are fleeting, reactive, weak. They are whispers of the herd, sparks of transient emotion, mental static. They could not bear the weight of eternal repetition. The practice of the eternal recurrence of thought is the discipline of identifying these shallow thoughts and systematically replacing them with thoughts so potent and so essential that to think them once is to set in motion a chain reaction of intellectual and personal transformation that you would gladly relive forever. This practice is the antithesis of the modern curse of intellectual distraction. The digital age encourages a skimming consciousness, a mind that flits from one stimulus to the next, never pausing to drill down into the bedrock of an idea. You consume vast quantities of information, but possess very little understanding. The eternal recurrence demands the opposite, radical depth. It forces you to engage in what we can call spiral thinking. Instead of thinking in a linear fashion moving from point A to point B to point C, you choose a single foundational idea, and you circle back to it again and again, each time at a higher level of understanding. Imagine a thought as a spiral staircase. The first time you encounter the thought, you are on the first floor. You understand its basic definition, its surface-level implications. The common mind stops here. The sovereign intellect begins its ascent. You live with the thought. You apply it to different areas of your life. You encounter contradictions and complexities that force you to refine it. You then return to the same thought, but now you are on the second floor. You see its nuances, its connections to other ideas, its hidden assumptions. You continue this process, action, reflection, return, ascending the spiral with each cycle. The thought does not change, but your relationship to it is utterly transformed. It ceases to be an abstract concept and becomes a lived reality, a part of your psychic DNA. This is how a principle like the will to power, or amor fati, moves from being a philosophical quote to an operational command in your nervous system. The practical methodology for this is deliberate cognitive recursion. This involves selecting a core Nietzschean principle or any powerful idea and subjecting it to a structured process of deep iteration. For example, take the concept, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." Do not just accept it. In your first cycle, you analyze it intellectually. Is this always true? What are the exceptions? What did Nietzsche mean by stronger? In your second cycle, you apply it to a recent failure or pain in your life. How can this specific event be framed not as a misfortune, but as a workout for your resilience? How did it actually force you to develop a new skill or a new insight? In your third cycle, you project it into the future. How can you proactively seek out challenges, knowing they will strengthen you? This recursive process bakes the idea into your subconscious. It moves from your prefrontal cortex into your cerebellum, from a conscious thought to an automatic response. Another technique is the mental firewall test. When a new idea presents itself, you subject it to the eternal recurrence filter. You ask, is this a thought I would want to be the foundation of my actions for the rest of my life? If this thought were to echo in my mind forever, would it build me up or tear me down? This instantly vaporizes trivial, negative, and weak-minded thoughts. Why would you waste a single neuronal firing on a thought of resentment, of self-pity, of petty jealousy, if you knew you would have to relive the experience of thinking it for all time? This filter becomes an automatic garbage disposal for your mind, clearing out the psychic debris that clogs the channels of high-level intelligence. The ultimate purpose of the eternal recurrence of thought is to achieve conceptual embodiment. This is the state where a thought is no longer something you have, but something you are. The distinction between the knower and the known dissolves. When you have spiraled around the concept of self-overcoming so many times, through so many applications and reflections, you no longer need to recall the term. You simply live it. Your default mode of being becomes one of constant growth and transformation. When the principle of beyond good and evil is fully embodied, you no longer navigate the world through the simplistic lens of social morality. You operate from a personal, self-authored code of strength and authenticity. This level of integration is where thought becomes power in its purest form. The superhuman intellect is not defined by how many facts it can recall, but by the quality and depth of the few fundamental principles that constitute its core. These principles, hardened and refined through eternal recurrence, become the unshakable pillars of a mind that cannot be swayed by propaganda, demoralized by failure, or seduced by cheap validation. It is a mind that has chosen its thoughts with the solemnity of a God choosing the laws of a universe, because, in a very real sense, that is exactly what you are doing for the universe of your own consciousness. This vertical deepening is the fourth and perhaps most transformative activation code, forging an intelligence that is not just broad and flexible, but also dense, resilient, and unbreakably aligned with the highest expression of your will. The journey through intellectual negation, the will to knowledge, perspective shifting, and the eternal recurrence of thought has systematically dismantled the architecture of the conventional mind and laid the foundation for something unprecedented. These are not isolated techniques, but interconnected phases of a single metamorphosis. Now, we arrive at the synthesis, the integration point where these disciplines fuse into a new mode of being. This is the culmination. Becoming the Übermensch of intelligence. The Übermensch is not a final destination you reach, but a perpetual state of becoming that you activate. It is the embodiment of intellectual sovereignty, where you are no longer a product of your conditioning, but the creator of your cognitive universe. This is not about having a higher IQ or memorizing more information. It is about a fundamental shift in the relationship between your consciousness and reality. The Übermensch of intelligence does not seek knowledge, they generate it. They do not solve problems, they dissolve them by operating at a higher logical level. They have moved beyond consuming philosophy to living as philosophers, where every moment is a field for the application of will, perspective, and depth. This final state is characterized by three fundamental attributes: cognitive sovereignty, generative intellect, and existential agility. Cognitive sovereignty is the absolute authority over your own mental processes. It is the final death of reactivity. In this state, the external world news cycles, social opinions, others' emotions, loses its power to dictate your internal state. You have installed a psychological immune system that automatically filters out noise, deconstructs manipulation, and converts chaos into data. This isn't emotional suppression, it's emotional alchemy perfected. A criticism becomes feedback, a crisis becomes a complexity to be navigated. A personal attack becomes a diagnostic tool revealing the other person's insecurities. Your mind becomes a sealed laboratory where experiments in thinking are conducted under controlled conditions, free from the contaminants of the herd's anxiety. This sovereignty is maintained through what we can call the continuous audit. You are always monitoring your own thoughts, not with neurotic scrutiny, but with the detached curiosity of a scientist observing a fascinating organism. You notice when a thought pattern feels borrowed, when an emotional reaction feels programmed, and you course correct in real time. This is the practical manifestation of the will to power over your own psyche. You are the unopposed ruler of your inner kingdom. From this sovereignty emerges generative intellect. Most intelligence is derivative. It recombines existing ideas. The Übermensch's intellect is generative. It creates new frameworks and new ways of perceiving. This is the difference between a chef who follows recipes and a chef who creates new cuisines. Generative intellect emerges from the fusion of all the previous disciplines. Your practice of perspective shifting allows you to see problems from angles that are invisible to others. Your will to knowledge provides the raw material from multiple domains. Your eternal recurrence practice gives you the depth to see the fundamental patterns beneath surface-level details. When faced with a challenge, you don't just look for solutions within the existing paradigm. You ask how the paradigm itself can be rewritten. A generative intellect doesn't ask, "How do I win this game?" It asks, "What game is worth playing, and how can I create the rules?" This is the intellect that invents new business models, founds new philosophical schools, and produces art that redefines culture. It operates on the principle of conceptual synthesis, taking seemingly incompatible ideas from different domains and forcing them into a creative tension that births something entirely new. This is the highest expression of the will to power in the intellectual realm, not to conquer what is, but to create what could be. The practical manifestation of this synthesis is existential agility. This is the ability to move seamlessly between different modes of thinking and being as the situation demands. The Übermensch of intelligence is a psychological shapeshifter. In one moment, they can be the cold logician, dissecting an argument with surgical precision. In the next, they can be the visionary artist, painting with emotions and metaphors. They can engage with the mundane details of daily life without losing connection to their cosmic perspective. This agility is powered by what we can call the cognitive dashboard. You develop an internal control panel where you can consciously dial up or down certain cognitive functions, increasing skepticism when detecting manipulation, amplifying creativity when solving novel problems, engaging empathy when building alliances, switching to strategic mode when under threat. This is the ultimate application of perspective shifting. You don't just understand different perspectives, you can become them at will. This makes you utterly unpredictable and impossible to categorize. You are a moving target for any would-be manipulator and a force of nature in any endeavor you choose to pursue. The final discipline is the integration protocol. This is your daily practice of weaving these capacities into the fabric of your life. It begins with morning sovereignty setting, 5 minutes of consciously choosing which thoughts and values will govern your day. This is followed by microsyntheses. Throughout your day, you take 2 random pieces of information and force a connection between them, training your generative intellect. You practice perspective flipping in conversations, deliberately arguing against your own position to strengthen your cognitive agility. And each evening, you perform the eternal recurrence review, selecting one key thought from your day and asking, "Is this a thought I would will to think eternally? If not, what thought would I replace it with?" This constant cycle of setting, generating, shifting, and deepening forges a mind that is not just intelligent, but alive with purpose and power. Becoming the Übermensch of intelligence is not about becoming the smartest person in the room. It is about becoming the only person in the room who is truly, authentically thinking, creating your world from the raw materials of reality itself, unbound by the chains of convention and directed by a will that has overcome itself to become something more than human. This is the awakening. This is the forbidden technique mastered. This is the superhuman intelligence that was always your birthright, now claimed.